Have you ever opened your fridge or your cabinets or maybe done your inventory and spotted a date that was past the expiration date and wondered, is this safe to eat? You're not alone. In fact, confusion over food labels and the dates on them cause Americans to throw away billions of dollars worth of food every single year. Today, we're going to break down sell by dates, best if used by dates, use by dates, right? And we're going to see what they really mean, how long foods typically last beyond those dates, and most importantly, how to know if your food is actually safe, because that's what it comes down to. By the end of this video, you will not only save money, okay, which is big, but you'll also reduce food waste and protect your family's health all at the same time. Time to put on your super cape. Let's do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness. And a very frequent question is, it was dated 2 months ago. Is it still safe? If it's dairy, is it still safe past its date? It's a common question. It's very confusing, and I think they do it on purpose half the time. Let's talk about why food date labels exist. We have the sell-by date. Now, the sell-by date is a guideline for the store, not you, for the store, okay? Not the consumer. It tells retailers how long to display the product for sale to ensure that you're getting it at its peak freshness. That doesn't mean it's not safe to eat after that date. Then there's the best used by date or the best before date, because one language isn't enough. This is all about quality and flavor. Seriously, that's all it is. Best if used by or best by date is about quality and flavor, not safety. It has nothing to do with safety. Food past this date may not taste as fresh, okay? It may not be as crunchy or, whatever. But it can often still be eaten, and that's the key right there. And then there's the use by date. Okay, this is the manufacturer's recommended last date for best quality. Do you see a theme here? For perishable items like baby formula, this is also a safety deadline. So just to make it a little more confusing than it needs to be, baby formula should be taken at a whole different level than your average everyday food, okay? But the use by date is the manufacturer's recommended last date for best quality. But if you look at baby formula and it says that, don't use it past that. As probably the perfect example, milk with a sell by date of the 10th may still perfectly be good around the 14th. It depends on the storage, the temperature of the refrigerator, how it was, stored the entire time. That's the factor that you have to watch for. So it's not that it's not good on the 11th or even the 10th. It's that that's the best optimal date for consumption. However, if it's stored properly, kept nice and cool, then it's probably good a day or two after. How long do foods typically last beyond their sell-by dates? This is where it gets even more confusing, but it's worth it to save the money. We're going to break this down into different categories. There's dairy, and dairy has a whole bunch of factors in it, but milk, 5 to 7 days beyond the sell-by date if it's refrigerated below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So not quite a freezing, but below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can get an extra almost a week out of it. Yogurt, believe it or not, 1 to 2 weeks past the date. Yeah, the texture might change a little bit, but it'll still be good. I find that if anything, it gets a little bit thicker. Hard cheeses, and some soft ones actually, but hard cheeses. Are you ready for this one? Weeks to months past the sell-by date, if you store it properly. I have had hard cheese last 6 months past the date. It was perfectly good, performed perfectly good, tasted phenomenal. There was nothing greener growing on it because I kept it really cold in the refrigerator. Yes, you can freeze cheese also, but It's one of those things that you have to pay attention and just be aware of. You don't have to throw it out just because of the date. Now let's get into meat and poultry, because I know that's kind of a testy one. And for this, notes. Okay, fresh chicken or turkey is typically good 1 to 2 days past the sell-by date. Beef or pork, 3 to 5 days. Ground meats, used within 1 to 2 days. And packaged deli meats, once they're opened, 5 to 7 days. You've really got some leeway there. But if you've got fresh meat, or you find fresh meat, let's say for the manager specials, right? Throw them in the freezer. Portion them up and throw them in the freezer, and you have extended that date by months, literal months. Eggs are kind of a tricky one, right? Because everyone's got different ways to do it. But eggs can last. We're talking about commercial eggs, okay? Commercial eggs can last 3 to 5 weeks beyond the sell-by date if kept refrigerated. 3 to 5 weeks. So while you're throwing out perfectly good eggs and going to buy new ones, they're going to the bank, right? If you are uncertain, then try using the float test. I'll put a link to something about the float test in the show notes down below. Now, when it comes to dry goods, which are some of my favorite ones, okay? Pasta, rice, flour, canned foods, months to years beyond the printed date, as long as packages are intact and it's stored in a cool, dry place. Months to years. Now, a lot of your dry goods, like your beans and your pastas and your oats and all that kind of stuff, those are literally good for years, some of them decades. Your canned goods are definitely good for many months beyond the date that's on the can. Just look at the integrity of the can. That's going to be a key factor there. And understand that it might lose a little bit of its nutritional value, but not that much. Now let's talk about signs of spoilage, because this is something you have to be aware of. You need to learn to trust your senses and believe in it. That's the one thing. Trust yourself, believe in yourself and your senses, and you're going to do great. Even if food is technically in date, because it happens then too, it can spoil very easily if it's mishandled. Very easily. It's food. It's perishable for the most part. So you want to do by sight. Mold growth, discoloration, slimy textures. Those are things to keep an eye out for. Smell. Sour, rancid, or ammonia-like odors should definitely alert you. Touch. If it's sticky or tacky residue on meat or cheese, yeah, that's a no-go right there. And then taste. If it's bitter or sour or off flavors, don't keep eating it to double check. If it doesn't taste right, spit it out. Yeah. And then, make other plans from there. The golden rule is, when in doubt, throw it out, my friends. Foodborne illnesses are never worth the risk. So how does mishandling it change the rules? That's going to be, question number 2, is because storage mistakes can often shorten shelf lives dramatically. I mean, a lot. Leaving groceries in a hot car after shopping, people have done it. Refrigerators set above 40 degrees, not a good idea. I know it saves a little bit of energy, but not that much. Thawing meat at room temperature instead of the fridge. And I know a lot of us grew up with it this way, but they've learned that it's just not safe. And so if you want to thaw meat, you should do it in the refrigerator, not just sitting on the counter. Now, using the same cutting board for raw meat and produce is frowned upon, because those two should never mix. The bad stuff from the raw meat can get onto your fruits and vegetables, and it's all a hot mess after that. Cross-contamination. So let's look at a picnic, say, and potato salad sat out in the sun for hours, right? It might look fine, but it could be crawling with bacteria. You always want to make sure that if you're using something that has mayonnaise or, some kind of dairy like that, and you're out in the hot sun, that you're finding a way to keep it cold, absolutely cold. It doesn't need to sit out on the table. No, it can wait until everyone's ready to eat. Now, we've got some food storage tips to extend the shelf life, because That's what the game is all about, okay? So you want to keep your refrigerator between 37 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of your repair people will tell you that that's the best way. My repair guy told me a secret that a lot of you might know that I did not know, is that you're not supposed to cram the refrigerator full. You're supposed to leave space along the back so that the air can actually flow, and that will keep things from freezing, and it will keep you from having your refrigerator work too hard because it thinks that it's not cooling off properly. We're not actually supposed to fill our refrigerators. It was totally a new thing to me when he told me. Store your meat on the lowest shelf to prevent drips. And that's just one of those things. Even in my freezer, my fruits and vegetables are on top and my meat's on the bottom. When I'm looking at the refrigerator, same deal. Meats are always on the bottom, because if anything happens and that meat juice gets everywhere, right, you don't want it hitting everything all the way down. You want it to be at the lowest point possible. You want to freeze items before the sell-by date if you can't use them. Buy the sell-by date before the sell-by date. Get it in the freezer, because that way you can still use it. Airtight containers prevent moisture and cross-contamination with just about everything. It works with everything. So find yourself some good airtight containers. If you can put sugar or bread in there and the sugar gets hard or the bread gets stale, then it's not airtight. One of the best methods to make sure that you are using it when you're supposed to is using the first in, first out system. What you buy first, you use first, and that prevents you from throwing out even more because the date is so far gone. How do you reduce waste and save money doing this? Really simple. I have some 4 easy tips for you, right? Meal planning, menu planning, plan around what you already have. When you go through and you look at what's in your cabinet and your fridge, you want to see what is due to be used by the closest date and get that into the next meal or two. You want to make sure that you're rotating through your food on a regular basis, but if it's a perishable item, you want to pay very close attention to when you need to be using it, and you want to make sure that you do that to keep from throwing it out. You want to freeze any leftovers, right? Or portion-sized packs, because if you portion size any of the leftovers or the packs and put them in the freezer, you can use them for lunch or any other meal. You can have leftover dinners another night. It works out really well. Nothing gets thrown out. Learning how to preserve, that is a whole new game right there. So canning, dehydrating, freeze drying, definitely ways to help you save money. If you cannot recan, like if this salsa was very close to its date and I just wanted to make sure it was extended a little bit longer, I cannot safely just dump it into a canning jar and process it like I would any salsa recipe, because you don't know everything that's in there. You don't know to what percentages, and you don't know how much acid you have to add to it. So you cannot recan something just for the sake of recanning. Can I create something with this in an approved recipe and can it? Yes, that's a whole different thing. So if you have tomato sauce or tomato paste that's getting very close to its date, make something out of it. Can that. But you cannot just can it for the sake of canning it. Always check food storage charts from trusted sources like the USDA or the FDA. You know, they typically have some kind of chart to tell you how long you can trust something beyond certain dates or in certain circumstances. Now, they have been known to say that I think 4 hours after a power outage that you should throw out everything in your freezer. I know somebody who did that once. Hundreds of dollars thrown out for no reason, because it was still cold. So you really pull out your thinking cap a little bit. Don't risk anything, but pull out your thinking cap a little bit. If the power goes out and that refrigerator has not been opened in 5 hours, you're good. You should be good. Throw a thermometer in there really quick. Test it and see. Check on everything, okay? But yeah, that's the recommendation most of the time out there. So you want to pay attention to what they recommend, and then you want to decide how far you're willing to bend that rule. So then the question arises after all of this. So you can eat food past its sell-by date? The short answer is Sometimes, yes, if it's stored correctly and still passes the look, smell, taste test. Dates on packages are mostly quality, not safety. There is a difference between when it says expired. Okay, that's the spelling that you have to look for. Always trust your senses no matter what, and don't be afraid to use your freezer and food preservation skills to stretch your grocery budget. That's a really big one. Knowing how to do those things allows you to stretch that and to make that date kind of start over again. I hope that this was helpful for the sell by, use by, best if used by dates. Those are all different than expiration. When an expiration date exists, then that's the date. Trust that and run with it. But the rest of them are suggestions for us. They factor in sometimes, but it's mainly for the stores, not for the consumers. And so you have to learn to trust your judgment and stop throwing money away for the sake of throwing money away. If you want to see more about different foods that literally last forever, my favorite kinds, check out this video right here. And until next time, everybody, be safe. Keep stacking it to the rafters, my friends.